welcome everyone to our first reading of the semester. I'm very excited. We have a really great lineup tonight, student, faculty, and guests. And our first reader is Christopher Eckman. Chris is in his second year in the MFA program of Creative Nonfiction at Rosemont College and is the managing editor of the Rothala Review. He holds a bachelor's degree of science in computer science and mathematics from the Metropolitan State University of Denver and has been published in their arts and literary magazine, Metrosphere. He has lived in Colorado, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania. He currently works as a stay-at-home puppy dad in Villanova with his husband Tim and their two dogs, Dexter and Jordan, where he cooks, blogs, and plays guitar. Please welcome Chris.
Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 1 through Act 3, Scene 4, Backyard again. Enter me, laying out on the teak couch. I'm through with love for the moment. We just done Romeo and Juliet. With a glass of rosé next to a half-empty bottle of rosé and a huge bowl of paneer tikka masala. Having finished the first tragedy of the summer semester, no, not our instructor Carla's slow death inside as she fought the projection system from constantly interrupting our view of West Side Story, we move on to the second. This time, I recall more of the play, and the poetry doesn't require quite as much excavation. I've consumed about a pound of Indian food so far, and I'm feeling a little giddy from the wine. I've decided it feels good to be bad. And so along with the Macbeths, I make some bad decisions. My husband Tim is out of town on business, so it's just the Macbeths and me tonight anyway. I gleefully cast judgment upon them while I spend the evening breaking my diet. As the light in the sky begins to fade to a blood-red sunset, I consider, why don't I do more in the way of planning to murder those who get in my way of ultimate domination? Why don't I have any goals for ultimate domination? Am I not interested in power because I'm a lazy millennial? I make a note to dream bigger and become more ruthless in my pursuits. It wasn't until my junior year that I read my next Shakespearean play, Macbeth. Again, I was assigned a final project for the play. The winters in Minnesota can be brutally long, and the majority of our classes were in the basement of the high school. The main floor was used for the cafeteria, the gymnasium, the theater, and the administration office. The third floor held the math and science classrooms, and the basement housed English and history. Most of the classrooms had little to no natural light and were bathed in a glaring fluorescent aura that made my pale complexion turn almost transparent. I had missed the previous week of class. I suppose it's possible I was sick, but the truth is, I was living part-time at my new boyfriend's place, missing quite a few classes at the time. Whatever the reason, I had to make up the final project, and there was only one other person who had to do the same, so we were grouped together. She was one of those people that come into your life and you instantly sense that you already know them. I convinced her that reenacting a heavily cut version, our own little adaptation, of the play on camera at my place, and then editing it with my laptop would be an easy A, and she agreed. We spent an afternoon in an under-furnished living room, the camera set up in view of the couch with an artificial umbrella tree beside it. We fashioned witches' hats out of white printer paper and Scotch tape, which looked more like dunce caps. We spoke in falsetto voices to sound like witches. Once upon a time, there were 3 witches and a guy named Macbeth. Only now it's just us 2 witches and Macbeth is dead. Yeah, our sister Hecate had to go to France and now it's just us. Having explained our radical twist, we began to recap the events. Macbeth was a pretty good guy until he crossed our path. We told him he'd be king someday, and it seemed to go straight to his head. Macbeth, Act 4, Scene 1 through Act 5, Scene 4. Backyard again. Enter Tim and I. I'm on the love seat. There's no love like murderous love. And he's on the chair. We're sharing the footstool. It seems like a nice romantic afternoon. I've always wanted to have someone to sit outside and read with, and here we are. The sun is out, the dogs are playing in the yard, and Lady Macbeth has just been found dead. It's not the first time I felt forlorn while reading Shakespeare or just attending grad school. I get to a speech by Macbeth and I'm instantly taken with the beauty of the language. Tim, who is sitting across from me, intensely reading in silence, is interrupted with no warning as I begin to read aloud. I often interrupt him while he's concentrating on something else, and if I were him, I'd probably go Lady Macbeth on myself. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time. On all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. I let the silence digest for a moment, as if trying to force him to recognize the depth of the passage. And then I say, "Isn't that amazing?" As if I myself have written it. He looks up from his tablet and remarks simply, "Don't you read anything happy in grad school?" I pause as I consider the question and then respond honestly, "No." In class the next night, we watch a short clip where famous actors read the speech over and over. After the 10th reading, it sheds its beauty. The readers string out each tomorrow for longer and longer periods of time, and it transforms from a moving piece of prose to a contrived cliche. I'm sure that wasn't the intended effect, but it has begun to sound like something Romeo would say, obsessively consumed with melodrama and able to terminate the infinite loop playing in his head. "But Macbeth couldn't handle being the king, and Scotland fell to pieces," Megan explains. There are a lot of lines in our adaptation that are noteworthy, but the one that sticks with me the most comes right before Megan, who's playing Macduff, slays me, playing Macbeth, when I cry, "What? C-section?" She then strikes me with a cardboard tube that was left over from a spool of wrapping paper, and I fall to the ground. For some reason, the entire film is recorded in black and white. It's possible this was an artistic decision, made to help the empty wrapping paper rolls look more like swords, and the oversized leather jacket she's wearing for some reason more look like armor. There is also only one line from the entire performance in which I use a Scottish accent, which is when I play Malcolm and cry, "For Scotland!" Apparently, there wasn't even one line that I did, after having just played Macbeth. It's not confusing at all. Finally, our ending. And they all lived happily ever after, except Macbeth, who is dead. I hope I conveyed the mastery of narrative and direction of this performance. It truly was a tour de force. Megan and I became best friends after the production and kept in close contact for the next 10 years, occasionally visiting each other from opposite ends of the Midwest. During one of those visits, we got in one of those ugly fights after a bad night out, and we never spoke again. When I watched the video we made so many years ago to help with the writing of this, I can only recall Satan telling Macbeth, "Sir, the queen is dead," then turning to me and finishing, "And with her, a friendship."